He has his own company now. A prosperous little business, 3 wells producing $5,000 a week. Stop crying, you sniveling ass. Stop your nonsense. You're just the afterbirth, Eli.
No.
Slithered out on your mother's filth.
No.
They should have put you in a glass jar on the mantelpiece. Where were you when Paul was suckling at his mother's teat? Where were you? Who was nursing you, poor Eli? One of Bandy's sows? That land has been had. Nothing you can do about it. It's gone. It's had.
If you would just take this lease, Daniel.
Drainage, Eli, you boy. Drain dry. I'm so sorry. If you have a milkshake, and I have a milkshake, and I have a straw, there it is. That's a straw, you see. You watching? My straw reaches across the room and starts to drink your milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
So yeah, dude, I was literally like, what the hell is up with this ending?
Yeah, so first time seeing it, what are your thoughts?
Overall, I mean, it's very, very good, I think. I mean, just the whole first sequence, the 15 minutes or so, where there's no dialogue, I was about to text you saying, what is going on here? Why is there no dialogue here?
Well, I knew you were enjoying it because I was at work, and the first 20 minutes you were texting me like 4 different things, and you were just asking all these questions. So I knew you were into it, but no, I'm so excited that you saw it. It's my favorite movie, man.
Honestly, the character of Eli, I don't know if I hate him more than I hate Joaquin Phoenix's character in Gladiator or what.
Oh.
I hate more.
Oh my God.
I don't know which one I hate more.
That's a toss-up. That is pretty good. Paul Dana, oh my gosh. He had to have won something for this, but dude, there's one guy you want to punch in the face.
He does.
Okay, so the one thing I don't get is the who's Eli, who's Paul thing. I'm not sure if that's like it's in his head.
I think they're actually twin brothers. And I mean, I think they're actually twin brothers. I mean, it could be all in his head, but I mean, from what I gathered from watching it and from what I've read, he actually has a second brother or something like that.
It's just so confusing because they don't show them in the same scene, you know, so it's hard to tell if it's real or not. But
that's true.
That ending, whew, man,
I was just so baffled. I'm like, what is going on? Like, they're just talking like way up here, like what? I drank your milkshake, and you confess you're a false prophet. You don't believe in God. I'm like,
I just thought it was so great given the retribution of earlier on when he made him confess in front of his little state congregation or whatever that he abandoned his child HW, and for him to get him back like that when he told him he was going to get him back. I think the quote is I'm going to eat you alive or something like that.
Eat you alive.
Yeah, and it was just great. The ending is so perfect.
I showed you. Did you watch that YouTube clip I sent you with Adam Driver? Did you watch that clip I showed with Adam Driver on SNL?
No.
I sent you that clip where he does this impression of that he's an oil man, and I'm like, I never got the punchline of this. And then I watched it now after I've seen it. I'm like, this is hilarious.
Oh, the milkshake part?
No, it's nothing with the milkshake. He actually mentions it in there though, but he talks about I'm an oil man.
Oh yeah. There was a Family Guy episode I think where it kind of parodied the I'll drink your milkshake or whatever. Maybe it was South Park. I can't remember, but that movie.
South Park's done it, yeah.
I'm surprised you haven't seen it. It's a Paul Anderson film, and he does pretty amazing work.
Yeah, it's a pretty phenomenal. I'd give it at least a 9 out of 10.
Do you see why I would enjoy it so much, and people like me would enjoy it so much?
Yes.
I mean, he's a terrible character in terms of what he does.
Yes.
But it's just so fascinating, and you can understand from his perspective, him being a competitive, ultra competitive human being and wanting to not. I think the quote I took away from it was, he said he's a competitor and he just wants to see everybody else lose.
Yep.
I mean, everybody can relate to it a little bit, but he takes it to a certain extent to where he kills people, essentially, spoiler alert, out of spite. But no.
Hell, he even wants to compete with his own son. Like his own
Well,
son
that's what.
Live up to his name. I mean, it's not his real son, but it's his raised son. And he's like, nah, I'm gonna have to compete against you.
But he's so conflicted. I think that's why it's such a great performance by Daniel Day-Lewis, because I think he says he doesn't love HW or he doesn't care for his son, but then they do that flashback of him kind of playing around with his son. He does, but he is just such a prideful man that he refuses to admit defeat or accept anybody that competes with him. I mean, it's a great way to look at film and a great way to look at the human perspective on competitiveness. That's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Kind of speaking of films that are kind of okay and kind of not okay, depending on what you look at it, we're kind of going to talk about Star Wars today. Kind of mentioned that in the last podcast, some of the Rebels and Clone Wars. Also going to bring in some of the video game, the Fallen Order.
Okay, let's do it.
What do you want to start with? You want to start with the prequels? You want to start with the original?
I was going to ask you. I have notes on episodes 1 through 9. I didn't take notes on the TV shows because I think in our TV shows we talked about how I haven't seen all of the episodes of Clone Wars, so it's hard for me to comment on that. But if you want, we can start with number 1. Go ahead with number 1.
Number 1. You know what baffles me about this? I was watching number 9 today, and people are saying that one is just as bad as 1 and 2. Like rating wise, they're rating it just as bad. I was looking at IMDb. They're giving Rise of Skywalker a 7. And then, episode 2 or 1 and 2 are close with like 6.8 or 6.7. Like, how can you? I think 9's a lot better than those two. I mean, just starting at 1. I mean,
I disagree, but continue. Well, first let's talk about number 1. Okay, let's knock out the big thing. I guess the big thing is Jar Jar Binks. I mean, we can start with that and get it out of the way.
Me and Megan were watching a clip today from George Lucas. Have you ever heard this clip? Where he's like, Jar Jar is the key to all this. If Jar Jar succeeds, this whole movie succeeds.
Yes, I did. I did hear that one.
It didn't succeed. No.
Maybe he meant that in terms of toy sales or child admiration, but filmmaking wise, I think it was.
That's a slap in the face if he said it like it is. You know who he's saying it to? He's saying it to Steven Spielberg. You see this? Steven Spielberg's on set with him. Steven Spielberg's like 100 times better than him, and Spielberg's probably just like they're like kind of like, I know they're friends, but he's kind of like biting his tongue like, George, this is the stupidest idea you've ever had.
If he was a real friend, he would have been like, dude, George, let's look at this. This is terrible.
This is awful, George.
I mean, come on. You're going to ruin your reputation here. Let's go.
See, I was telling Brandon, when I was little, Jar Jar was my favorite character because I thought he was
right.
Funny. And then I grew up and realized how annoying he was.
Yes. I mean, when you're making poop jokes, like 3/4 of the time.
Hey, think about this. This is coming after 4, 5, 6. I mean,
right.
Ewoks kind of started. I guess his downfall was starting with the Ewoks, and then he's like, "Oh, everyone thought the Ewoks were fantastic. We'll bring Jar Jar in."
well, when we get to episode 6, I'll tell you about the Ewoks, but I think the Ewoks are just as bad as Jar Jar Binks.
Yes. I mean, some positives I take away.
Yeah, let's do some pros and cons because I wrote down some pros.
Liam Neeson, Qui-Gon Jinn, fantastic.
Yeah.
You get introduced to Obi-Wan with Ewan McGregor. He does fantastic too. He's just because of how bad the prequels were. He has an underrated performance in all his prequels. He's phenomenal in all.
100%.
I would say Darth Maul is a character. I mean, you don't see him in the movies, but again, you see him on all the TV shows like we discussed last week.
Well, I think
he's pretty scary, man. You see him on stage like the devil-looking guy. Like,
well, going back to what Megan kind of said, like growing up, you're introduced to Darth Maul, and he's just this badass, double-bladed, badass, and he's just killing people and doing all that stuff. So I think the intro to Darth Maul is so intriguing because he only says like 3 words the entire movie. So I think that's why he works so well, because the dialogue is so bad in the movie.
Mm-hmm. And you've never seen a double-sided lightsaber up until then, too. You've
right.
Seen, one, Darth Vader and Luke's, and
right.
Just the one.
Kind of a couple of old men, and then a boy, and then this is like what my pros was. One of my pros were seeing the Jedi in their prime. So kind of what you're going to was seeing a double-bladed lightsaber, seeing Jedi athletic and just kicking ass and doing all that stuff. So seeing that in a movie for the first time was pretty cool. So I'll give it that.
What do you think about Yoda, the original Yoda they did in episode 1? The new updates they made him CGI like they did on 2 and 3. What did you think about the original puppet they did?
I respect it from the fact that they tried to go back to the puppet Yoda, but it just looks so terrible. And then I think he's talking to Mace Windu, and it just looks so terrible.
I'm glad they went with the CGI after. I mean, it would look so bad without that CGI.
Yeah, I'm glad that people give Lucas a lot of crap, but I like that he went back and fixed some of the stuff so to make it more relative later in films. Because if you had a Yoda in episode 1 and then a CGI Yoda in 2, I don't know. I like that he went back and fixed a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So what else? What do you got? If anything, then we can get into the cons.
Yeah, some cons.
Wait, hold on. I got one more positive.
What do you got?
I want to talk about the pod race. What's your you like the pod race? I think that's the general consensus.
Yeah, I mean the pod race is pretty cool. I mean you get to kind of see where Anakin becomes like a real pilot. This boy, you can see that he has potential to become something great.
Right.
Also, no one's seen potential in him before until now.
There was another thing I was watching today with George Lucas. Speaking of Anakin. The whole scene, where he's blowing up all the droid ships at the end.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, it's like poetry. It rhymes. Like, Luke did the same thing when he destroyed the Death Star. So you see everything kind of has rhymes. Everything's the same. And that kind of mode kind of took place for all the new ones. And all the old ones, they kind of are all repetitive in some way. I just wanted to bring it up, just talking about, Anakin within thinking about George Lucas. It's kind of what I had.
I think there's a lot of convenient plot points to a lot of these movies. It's a lot of copy and paste. But in terms of the pod race, I mean, I'll talk about that a little bit in the negatives, but I like that it was, if I'm just looking at a single movie in episode 1, the beginning's cool, the ending's cool, obviously with Darth Maul, but the childish stuff, the politics, which we'll get into, there's a lot of dull moments, a lot of poop jokes, a lot of bullshit, right? So the pod race was a nice change of pace, and it was kind of cool. I mean, I didn't like how they shot the pod race. So if you actually watch the pod race, go back and see it, all the shots that George Lucas shoots are from left to right. So you'll just see the pods going from left to right, and he doesn't change it up ever. It's such a weird thing. So if you see it once, you'll never unsee it. So don't go watch it. No, remember this, but he does a terrible job of like changing the frames. But it was cool, it was exciting, but I thought it was a nice little, because you never see, like, if you go, because episode 1 was the newest episode after 6, like we just said. So going from that to this, it was just crazy to see all these new things thrown into the Star Wars world. So a pod race is really cool, I thought. So let's talk about the cons for episode 1.
All right. So I said the dynamic between Anakin and Padme is pretty like weird.
Well, are we talking about just episode 1? Because
even episode 1's pretty weird too.
It's just weird because if you look, obviously we've seen all of them. So knowing that they started off at, I think he was 9 years old and she was already like 18 or something, that's just a weird. He could have written that better. I don't know, just how they met and stuff like that. And I think the biggest problem I have with episode 1 is the true lack of a protagonist. So, so to not have a true, because in 4, 5, and 6, obviously Luke is the guy. You've got Han Solo. You've got relatable characters. You got Princess Leia, who, just is sassy and just giving orders to Han and Luke. It just, when you look at episode 1, it's just, you got, maybe Qui-Gon, maybe Obi-Wan. Maybe Obi-Wan, I don't know. I think that's my biggest problem. It's hard for me to relate to any of these people and actually give a shit.
What's a Qui-Gon?
That would be Liam Neeson's character in episode 1.
Oh.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, surprised. I think we watched that once, and that was it.
I can't. I tried to watch it before. Tried to do like a rewatch of it, and I fall asleep during it. It's really boring.
Well, that's what it is. I think the other thing is the boring political bullshit in Star Wars. The Jedi part's cool, but the rest of that is just so irrelevant because there's a gap between episode 1 and 2 by 10 years, and it's hard to, I don't know. And then the child Anakin bullshit.
Episode 3, I'm okay with the politics when it comes to it because you get to see the Chancellor's like actual rise to power and stuff like that.
Yeah. But episode 1, I get they're trying to, put in there that.
They introduce
you got to introduce Palpatine, but at the same time, I don't care about electing a new Supreme Chancellor.
Yeah, I guess. What would you give episode 1? I guess out of 10. We're gonna go to it.
I would probably give it probably a 6 out of 10. The good parts are good. The bad parts are extremely terrible. It's so boring. It's very childish, like you said. So for me, it's not rewatchable, and I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10.
I could say I could watch. Probably the ending would be okay. I can get with the ending.
You could probably skip the whole movie and not even worry. You don't have to watch episode 1 to get Star Wars, honestly. Like, I didn't even show, my wife has never seen it before I showed her, and she didn't need to see episode 1. I just went right to 3 and started from 3 on.
That's good. Yeah. It's crazy though, the amount of fandom that happened with episode 1. Craziness that went on. You're a little bit older than me. Did you see it when it first came out?
I did. I saw it. My aunt took me because my aunt was the one who introduced me to Star Wars. So, and believe it or not, back then, VHS era, she gave me a VHS with all 3 of the original on one VHS. So I was really excited to go see it, just like everybody else. And as a kid, kind of like what Megan said, it was good. Seeing it through the eyes of a 8-year-old or whatever, I thought it was really cool. But then as you grow older, it's so difficult to sit through, especially when you rewatch it with the new ones, and we'll get into that. But the originals, they don't even compare. So, yeah, I'd go to 6 out of 10.
I would say probably like a 6.4, just because 6.4, 6.5, just because of what kind of how Darth Maul expanded upon. Now that I watched like the Clone Wars, how he expanded and how looking back at Ewan and Liam's performance, I'd kind of say that's kind of what saved it.
All right, well, let's go on to episode 2 because
the best one out of all the Star Wars movies ever made.
But I feel like you and I have a little bit of different opinions. But we can go to 2. Let's start with the pros of 2. I know you don't have a lot, but do you want me to start then with the pros?
Sure. Yeah, I'll let you go.
Okay. I like 2. I don't love 2. I think 2 is better than 1 actually.
Really?
Because because I think there's a point to it in terms of I think there's a plot and I think there's some development of character.
Okay.
With 1, like I just said, you could skip all of 1 and not worry about it if you were going to catch up on the rest of the series. But with 2, I really like how first of all, I really like Count Dooku. I think that's a great antagonist. I really like him. There's a lot of things that you don't see in the Star Wars world that you get to see finally, like Coruscant. I mean, you didn't see it in 4, 5, 6. You heard about it. I think that it shows you the depth that George Lucas has created in his own mind. He finally started to show it in film. So I really like it, but yeah, there's just a lot of different things, like the chase scene in the beginning. I remember seeing that and thinking that was really cool. The creation of the clones, I thought that was kind of cool. The explanation of that, I thought there was a little bit of mystery to it, but I like that it goes unanswered and you have a couple questions about it. I don't know. I just think I like that there's a point to it, unlike 1. What do you think?
Okay, I can see where you're coming from with it. I mean, just again, the dialogue gets worse in this one, I think, than the first one.
Right.
Talk about the best quote of all time, Zach. I like sand. I like it because it's coarse and it's rough.
But do you agree if there was a better writer of dialogue and stuff like that, that movie could have been good?
It could have. No, I agree. It could have. Just that is just awful though. That whole Anakin and Padme crap they put in there is just awful. It's terrible. I would say it's kind of cool too. I guess going with some pros. You get to see Yoda in his prime. He gets introduced, in the first few, first 3 movies. He's a female man, and then you get to see him, in his prime. You get to see, like you said before with episode 1, you see the Jedi in their prime. Like you saw that whole fighting sequence on Geonosis, where you get to see all the Jedi just kind of fighting for the first time. You can see all the different colors of lightsabers. You get to see Mace Windu with the purple lightsaber. Good old.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, eh?
Yeah. That was interesting though. He killed Jango Fett like he was nothing. Like they're raising Jango Fett throughout the movie to be like this extreme
badass
villain, kind of like Boba. Well, same thing happened to Boba Fett in the originals.
Right.
He was badass, and they kill him like it's nothing.
Well, maybe they're trying to show how cool Mace was. I liked Mace Windu. I thought his arrogance is really what killed the Jedi Order, but I liked his character.
Yeah, I
He
agree.
was a badass, but he didn't care.
He succumbed. He had a lot of anger.
Yeah.
Out of any of them, yeah.
What else did you? I mean, I like the chasing in the beginning, and I like the whole bounty hunter aspect of them trying to hunt down Padme. I think Padme as a character in general is kind of boring, but that part was kind of cool, and I thought the writing in of Obi-Wan and Anakin, especially Anakin defending Padme or protecting her or whatever, I think it's a good way to establish a relationship between the two.
Yeah.
They didn't execute it the best way. I will grant you that, but it's a good excuse to do it. But yeah, the dialogue. Okay, let's get into the negatives because you and I have a negative rating of this, but dialogue is terrible in this. Yeah, what I wrote down is it feels like a melodrama, kind of like a Days of Our Lives kind of soap opera.
I can see that. That works.
It feels like a TV series. It's just so poorly executed, and it just feels cheesy and out of place. If you think of Empire Strikes Back and Han and Leia, kissing and saying "I love you" and "I know," and then going to "I like sand," it's just so terrible.
I don't know how George goes from knows how to do love scene like stuff like that, communication to just there's so many parodies on this movie, so many parodies on all of his dialogue and all of his lines in that movie.
But I think and another thing I had was the bad acting. So there's a difference between bad acting and bad writing.
I think it's a lot.
when he talks, and another one is Anakin's character in general. So I'll just include all this. When Hayden Christensen talks, it's just terrible. I think he's a very, very poorly, very poorly written, and he didn't act it well. So when he starts to talk, it's terrible. But there's one scene in it where I really like. It's when the Sand People have his mother or whatever, and all he is doing, he's not saying a word, and he's just riding away to go in anger because you know what he's going to turn into, and the music is blaring, and he's just riding away to go hunt down whatever, I think Sand People or whatever. So there's some moments where you're like, oh, that's pretty cool, but the dialogue is so bad, man. I just don't understand how this got okayed.
Yeah.
Honestly.
In that movie, you get introduced to Uncle Owen in that movie.
Yeah, and okay, that's another thing. It's just too convenient of plot points. Like, you couldn't have written anything else. I mean, I understand you want to make some connections, but like, dude, everything has to be connected.
They connected his mom, though. They connected his mom to, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru.
Yeah, no, I get it, but
I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean,
you
know that he was his uncle, though. You knew that was Luke's uncle.
Right. No, yeah, I guess there's a whole other episode to get into that. In episode 3, they could have delved into that, but
I guess.
All right. So what would you give episode 2?
6.2.
Okay, so I gave episode 1 a 6. I'm gonna give episode 2 probably a 6.5.
Would you still say that I don't know. So you're saying episode 1's the worst for you?
Out of all 9?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because yeah.
Talk towards the end. Okay. We're
yeah.
Interesting. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it's not the worst, but I'm gonna give episode 2 because it had some relevance to the overall story, or at least about the story we care about. So I'm gonna give it a 6.5. It was just so poorly executed; it's hard for me to go above that. No, it looks good. It sounds good. I want to go into John Williams later. I want to make that like a little special segment because you saw John Williams in person. That's pretty crazy. Or no, you didn't see him in person, but you saw a concert.
I got to hear his music. I didn't get to see him in person. I got to see
his
music. Megan actually got to see the London Symphony Orchestra, though.
That's pretty cool. I wish I could see that.
Not with John Williams wasn't there, though, but she got to see the actual orchestra. Megan, we're going to get into that later, so we got some time. All right. Guess we'll just jump into episode 3. Definitely, I think the best of the prequels.
100%.
Personally, I mean, you could see George Lucas definitely got better with his writing as he went along. The action sequences in this movie are phenomenal. I know you're not a fan of the action sequences, as you told me before, but I mean, some of the fight scenes in this are just crazy. You get more lightsaber duels in this movie than you do in the whole original trilogy. You actually jump right into the action with this one, with Anakin and Obi-Wan just jumping in to save the Chancellor, and you kind of get introduced to a character, General Grievous, who you've never seen before. They kind of just threw him in there.
I like it though, especially not knowing the Clone Wars series and the movie at the time.
He was his first appearance besides Episode 3. I wonder if maybe there's an original Clone Wars series that was directed by the guy who did Samurai Jack. You know Samurai Jack?
Yeah.
And there was a Clone Wars series that he did.
Was it a TV show or a movie?
It was a TV show. They had a few seasons on it. You actually get introduced to Grievous, but they don't mention him by name. So I think it was before they made Episode 3.
Oh, wow. No, you're right. Because I think it came out, it was a long time ago.
I think it was before Episode 3. So they kind of took that idea of what that guy did on Samurai Jack and put Grievous as him, put a name to him and whatnot. There's actually a really cool scene, if you really wanted to. They show how the Chancellor got kidnapped.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really interesting. They show the whole sequence of how Grievous stole him and the attack on Coruscant. So what somebody's kind of did before is they took this new Clone Wars piece where we talked about how Anakin and Obi-Wan were late to it. So they kind of took that little bit and they took the part with the Samurai Jack guy of the Clone Wars and they kind of morphed it into a long sequence. You know how people do for like Rogue One going into Episode 4.
Right.
For this Clone Wars and the new Clone Wars, and combined it to make like a whole long sequence to jump right into Episode 3, which is pretty cool that I watched.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool clip. It's like 5 minutes long. If you look it up, they did a morphing of all 3.
Yeah. No, it's like Kenny, you just said, the production quality is just, you can tell right away. There's a difference between just in the beginning 20 minutes, maybe 45. It's such a long scene, the whole, saving the Emperor thing or Palpatine thing.
Mm-hmm.
That whole sequence is so much better than anything produced in the first 2 movies.
Agreed.
So you can tell right away the sincerity of it is just amped up, and you can tell everything about Episode 3. I really appreciate. I mean, there's some clunky dialogue, kind of the same thing, but I think that's just who Lucas is. Because if you look at the original trilogy, we have the same problems. We just don't criticize it because maybe it's a nostalgia factor or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But Episode 3, it's just nonstop. I mean, you know what's going to happen. We all know eventually Anakin turns to Vader. I mean, that's not a spoiler. If you're listening to this, you know it's not a spoiler.
Yeah.
So the turn from Anakin to Vader is good to me.
Mm-hmm.
I like that Palpatine is pulling the strings the whole time, and I like that there's certain things that we don't know. Like you just mentioned, Grievous. We never met Grievous before, so if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, he's thrown into this movie as another villain, the character, whatever, and you buy it. He's kind of cool. He's got all these different lightsabers, whatever. But for me, what does it is Palpatine. Honestly, I think
he does a very good job. Yeah.
Yeah, Ian McDiarmid just knocks it out of the park. I mean, from everything from the opera scene to him actually anointing Vader. I think it's just done flawlessly. Yeah, Sheev Palpatine. It's just he does such a great job, Ian McDiarmid. He's so maniacal in everything he does, and I like Hayden Christensen in this role, specifically in Episode 3, because it's the things he doesn't say. So, for example, there's a scene where I think once Order 66 goes down, I don't know if it's before or after that, but it's just a shot of Anakin looking across a window and into nothing because he's using the Force to, I don't know if he's connecting with Padme or whatever, but it's just so strong. The music's blaring. I think he's crying or something like that. But he just does such a great job of convincing you of the sorrow that Anakin has for betraying the Jedi Order. And I think that story is intriguing, along with the great choreography of the lightsaber fights, the settings which take place. Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor does a great job. I don't know. It's really good. I think it's the best out of the 3. There's not a lot of flaws besides the clunky dialogue I have. I can go into it. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, it's just the dialogue for me. That's what does it in. I guess the sudden turn when it's very convenient. The Mace Windu, the whole Mace Windu Emperor thing. I don't know. I don't have a lot of complaints. So to me, it's pretty flawless. I know it's pretty high praise for a prequel, but I really appreciate it for what it is. So I'd probably give it maybe an 8.
I would second that. I could say it's a high 8. I'd say it's an 8.
But I feel like people who they're going to say they're true Star Wars fans are going to criticize us for giving it that high. I don't know. I just really appreciate it for what it is. And there's a story to tell. You already know the story, and for what it was, I thought it was really good.
I mean, it included the darkest scene of the whole entire series.
Yeah.
Number
I mean, Lucas could have kept out the whole.
You knew
I don't know.
somehow the Jedi were exterminated, but you didn't know how and when and who.
Right. I think what saves it is Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor's acting. Honestly, I know Hayden Christensen gets so much shit for his portrayal as a whiny little bitch, but honestly, I think he does a pretty good job. You feel bad for the guy. I mean, I don't know. I just thought it was good.
Yeah, the whole. Honestly, whenever I rewatch that movie, I skip it to the last fight scene between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Just that whole like dialogue exchange where they had when he walks out of the ship.
Yeah, with Padme there.
With Padme there. You were with him.
Yeah, you could. Honestly, you could probably skip it. You could probably skip everything up until that scene if you wanted to. I don't know. He did such a poor job of the actors portraying them, but
yeah, I mean, you also got the Yoda Emperor showdown too.
I thought that wasn't necessary.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I agree, but it was bound to happen. He had to throw it in there because people were wondering the whole time why wouldn't Yoda try to stop the Emperor? Why wouldn't Yoda intervene and try to destroy this great evil? And they had to put it in there. I mean,
it's very plot convenient.
His hand was kind of tied in that, in that regard.
Right, like why wouldn't Yoda take care of the Emperor? Why wouldn't Yoda take care of Anakin right away?
That's true.
I thought he should have taken care of Anakin right away, but no. So what would you give it?
I agree with you with this. I'd give it an 8. That one too. Kind of going back, it has like some of the most meme-worthy moments of the whole thing. There's always that "do it."
Yeah, but it's a good meme though. I think that's just who the Emperor is.
Yes.
Pay attention.
I mean,
are we ready to go on some good movies? Let's move on past prequels.
Oh, okay, sure.
No, that's all right. All right, let's just get into it. Just start off. All right, I want to hear Dane's opinion. All right, so here's the opinion of the prequels, Dane. This is Dane, by the way. That's the intro you get, buddy.
Figure it out eventually.
Brandon and I think that episode 1 is okay. I like episode 2 in terms of it has a point to it. Brandon does not like episode 2 because he thinks it's a piece of shit.
You guys me a little bit.
This is hardcore, just worthless.
Yeah, and then episode 3, I think that we both agree to like it more than most. So actually, I guess my opinion or my question to you is, what's your opinion on episode 2? Because that's where we differ.
Yes.
See, I don't know. Like I've seen so much of it now. Like they all have important parts of them. So as you go back and watch them, there's still, even like there's like Sifo Dyas was a character that was like never talked about anywhere else in the movies other than Attack of the Clones. But if you get into the Clone Wars and everything else, like you learn about him. So like even the introduction of the clone army in general all happened in Attack of the Clones. That wasn't really set up yet. So there's big parts to all of them, really.
I think I'd like the air of mystery to it. I think I'd like that because you were wondering who Sifo Dyas was, and then when you look back at episode 1, it was just a whole bunch of gobbledygook. It was like garbage. I mean, there wasn't a lot to it. It was kind of pointless, honestly. I mean, it was just, you could skip all of episode 1 and go right to 2 almost. And
well, I mean, technically, episode 1 showed the beginning of the war.
Yeah.
So if the war hadn't started, there would be no introduction for a clone army. There would be no it's like all the groundwork for the deceit was laid in Attack of the Clones after the war was initiated in Phantom Menace.
Well, go ahead, Brandon.
No, he's got you. That's so true.
Well, honestly, it's Palpatine that's pulling the strings. So you want to look at Palpatine, and he's the one who's kind of the mastermind of it all, and without him, it wouldn't be possible, right?
Yeah, but I mean, he's got a role in each movie, you know, and there's like key points in each part, you know, and Phantom Menace, it's really just, you know, him setting up his move. In Attack of the Clones, there's like, you know, there's like a little bit clearer definition where you see him like really like tipping the scale on things, even you know, kind of coaxing Anakin to kind of, you know, to eventually become his apprentice. All that stuff starts in Attack of the Clones too.
I can't even play it.
I mean, you get to see a younger Palpatine too, so you understand why he had Rey as a granddaughter. So you know that you're not thinking about the old Emperor having a son. You think about that.
Hey, dude, spoiler alert, man. Spoiler alert.
No spoiler.
What's the boundaries here? Who's listening to this? And is there, you know?
Everyone's got to see it. It's
I don't think there's any spoilers allowed at this point, right?
So Dane, I'm not saying you're older, but so when you saw episode 1, what was your opinion of it when it first came out? Because
when I was a kid, I don't think I honestly, I didn't give a shit about Star Wars until I was older. It was like it was like something I was interested, like I liked Star Wars when I was a kid, but I didn't go back and actually watch episode 4 and like commit to watching the series and like really getting into it until I was an adult. So when I was a kid, I don't remember. I probably thought it was entertaining, but I don't remember watching it over and over again. I remember seeing like, you know, the promotional stuff at Taco Bell. That's
right. So what was the first one you saw?
I would guess probably Phantom Menace or something was actually the first one I'd seen when I was a kid, but my memories of it are so vague.
See, that's an interesting perspective. I mean, and you still respect the originals, right? To the same degree as we do.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool. I mean, but
when I actually like, I kind of made a conscious decision to like, I'm gonna. It was like, it was hard for me to get into Game of Thrones, but once I did, I was like, this is great. And Star Wars was kind of the same thing for me at first. I was like, it's cool, but that's a lot, and I don't know if I was really that into it. But like when I really sat down, I started by watching episode 4, and I started with A New Hope, and went.
So you acknowledge the issues with episode 1 and 2, I'm assuming, right?
I mean, there's plot holes all over the place. Which ones?
Well, I mean, I think we looked at the whole Jar Jar Binks and the bad dialogue. I think that's what we looked at the most. The childish factor. I don't know. The bad dialogue too. The writing is just pretty bad, but we understand where Lucas is coming from in terms of a grand perspective, where he wanted to go. You know the story. You know Vader is. You know he's eventually going to turn into Vader. So that's the whole point of it. But I think he did it, and especially in episode 1 and 2, so poorly. I don't know. And then you add the Jar Jar Binks poop jokes into it, and it just takes it to a whole other level.
There's I don't remember like where this is from, but Jar Jar has like, I would say kind of what I love about Jar Jar is all like the conspiracy theories about him being a Sith Lord. But there's like an importance to him that I think George Lucas mentioned about being like one of those passable characters that has actually like a lot of lore and like a lot to contribute to the story that like you would normally pass by. That's like Yoda was kind of the same under the same stroke.
No, he was definitely.
Does that, you know, like, does that make sense? I guess.
No, 100%. No, he was kind of key to it.
I mean, he's annoying. I mean, Jar Jar, like his voice and his dialogue was audibly annoying, but that all of Star Wars is about characters, and he's just another character.
100%.
He's the one that gave Palpatine his power, though. That's the only thing that was key about him. Here's your emergency powers. If you say it, we'll give you it.
Well, he's a pawn, you know. That's.
He's a friggin' idiot. That's what he is.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Could you have done without him? Let's just ask that. 100%, right?
Yes. Another character could have been created to fill his role for sure.
All right. I guess let's skip forward. We could have skipped all the way into the last 25 minutes of episode 3, right? And gone right into episode 4. We didn't need any of the whole gobbledygook. Come on.
What? Where? Wait, hold on. Wait, the last. Oh, you mean like literally just the final fight scene between Obi and Anakin? Like just that?
That's what Zach's considering.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Order 66. Order 66 on. I think we.
Yeah, pretty much. You get it that Emperor Palpatine's a bad guy, and they did such a poor job of. I don't know. Yeah, you could have just skipped all that up until that point.
It's. I feel like no, like you can't cut it out.
He could have written it better.
All this stuff to me could be expanded. Like that's the side I'm on of this is like there's pivotal moments again all through Revenge of the Sith when again like Anakin's making his turn. Like I don't know.
No, it definitely had its moments, but what's your favorite movie out of the 3?
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Easily.
Well, what's your least favorite?
I think to watch Attack of the Clones.
Really?
Boom.
That's a little surprising, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was good, but it's
right.
Honestly, I don't know. I think I could be the most critical out of that movie if I were to like really break it all down. Just as some of the stuff that was maybe a little cheese and a little too PG for.
Mm-hmm.
I compared it to like a soap opera. It was it seemed like out of this world, kind of like cheesy.
The Coliseum fight scene,
yeah.
Like back on that in Geonosis, like that was weird.
Yeah, I get that. No, 100%, I get that.